Hey Brave Nation, this is John Gross, the voice of the Uncp Sports Network. Listen, I know this is a very difficult time for everyone. We know how important Braves athletics is to all of you, yet we sit here in March with no sports, so we wanted to help. Of course, there's no way to replace the thrill of a slam dunk or a home run or the rush of a big touchdown run, but we are excited to announce a brand new podcast, BraveHawk Talk. Every week, we will release 2 shows, so I have the chance to sit down and chat with some of the most important names in the world of UNC Pembroke athletics, and this right here is our very first episode. On today's show, we are thrilled to be joined by 2 very special guests. We start off with Drew Richards, the newly minted head coach of the UNCP men's basketball team. And then we end today's show with head athletic trainer Joey Tamburo. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 1 of BraveHawk Talk. All right, so Coach Richards, first episode here of BraveHawk Talk, and you are the first of many people related to UNCP athletics that we will be bringing on. So first of all, thanks for joining us, and second of all, welcome back to Pembroke.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm glad that we're making this record-breaking joint venture here during a time of such unrest.
Yes, you mentioned such unrest, a bizarre time with the coronavirus situation, and for you and your personal life, making now the second move in 2 years.
Yeah, 1 year.
1 year. Yeah. 1 year. At this point in time, with everything going on in the world, what has the last week or so since you decided to come back to Pembroke been like for you?
It's been pretty nutty. I mean, the coronavirus itself is such a global issue. It's made everything pretty weird. I mean, when you have teams stopping halfway to the NCAA tournament and having to turn around and come back home, that's not normal. But as far as personally, our family, I mean, it's been exciting times. You know, it was tough to leave Lander. We really enjoyed our time there. We got to know the staff, the players, the community. It's a great place. It really is. But this place is home. I mean, there's no doubt in our minds that UNCP, this area, Robeson County, I mean, this feels like where we want to be. And when the opportunity arose, we knew we wanted to take it. And so the family's been great. It's been kind of weird being quarantined a whole bunch when there seems like there's a lot of work to do, but we're excited to be back.
Let's go back a few months, last spring, and you decide to take the Lander job, leave UNC Pembroke. How tough of a decision was that for you?
You know, most people, it probably was going from associate head coach to a head coaching position. It probably it seemed to be an easy decision. You know, being able to call the shots and run the show at a great university in a great league and work for a great boss and things like that. But you know, we were so deep seated here, and my wife had a great job, and you know, the staff and the players, and it's truly a close knit, tight knit family. So it was a lot tougher than what people imagined. I mean, there was a lot of toil going back and forth. Ultimately, we decided, just for my career, for our family's sake, it was better to take it at the time. And looking back on it, I don't regret taking it. I don't think our family regrets taking it. Whenever we start packing boxes, we might start thinking that way. But as of right now, I think for us and my growth and trying to be the best coach I can be, I think that was the best opportunity to take.
You talk about your growth. You get a year under your belt as a head coach down at Lander. And I have to say, one of the highlights of the season, for me at least, in terms of press conferences that we had, was after the UNCP Lander game, which I do want to ask you about in a second here.
Good.
When you guys came here, Tyrell Kirk had his 33-point game.
Yeah.
Afterwards, Coach Jones came in and some of his players came in, and you can just tell from their responses when I asked about what it was like to play against you. They have so much respect for you, and I just thought that was really, really cool. And it said a lot about you, and I had never interacted with you, but that was, I guess, my first semi-interaction with you. So I do want to ask you about that game against UNCP here. What was it like for you to return to the sidelines on the opposite sideline?
Well, it was tough. I mean, obviously the outcome of a game, getting your tail kicked in front of people you consider family, is not always entertaining. But, you know, playing against those guys, because, you know, you look at, you know, David Struther and his mom Latanya and the recruiting process through Village Christian and all that went into trying to bring him to be a Brave. And Tyrell Kirk and his mom Sherry and his brother Sean, and going to Whiteville and seeing Coach Singletary and bringing them to UNCP, you know, being involved in those recruiting processes for the guys, it's really tough. It almost felt like it felt like it was brother versus brother. You know what I mean? Like you're competing against a sibling. That's kind of what it felt like. And to see the maturation of Tony Jones from being a student assistant that we weren't even sure we were going to keep on staff the first couple weeks to being such a great presence on the sideline and such a great leader for those guys. I mean, it was so bittersweet to see essentially what we felt like was family, whether it's players, staff, alumni, administration, people that we felt that we consider, like I said, family, and then competing against them. So I think looking back on it now, it was exciting. It was fun. At the time, it wasn't fun. I can tell you that much. I don't think anyone thought it was fun on our end of the court. But it's hard. Really during the year there was really two teams we rooted for. We rooted for Lander, and then we always wanted UNCP to be very good.
You mentioned the Kirk brothers, and I've heard from sources that you had predicted one of the Kirk brothers to go off against you guys in that game.
Yeah.
But I heard that it was Sean Kirk.
It was.
Okay.
And Sean played pretty well. But,
yes.
Tyrell, and I think the timing it was pretty good because Tyrell just had a frustrating game at Columbus State. And he came out with he was locked in. And I knew I thought Sean would always play with a bit of energy. I mean, Sean is as athletic and as good as a player as has stepped through these doors based on talent level. And Tyrell has really pushed himself to be a good player. So I kind of figured one of the Kirk brothers would go off, but it turns out I was a little wrong on which one.
33 points for Tyrell and a win for the Braves at home. But you look back to your year at Lander, you win the most regular season games in 20 years, you win the Peach Belt Conference tournament title at home, qualify for the NCAA tournament. Now you're back to Pembroke. What went into that decision to return to UNCP?
A lot. Like I said before, we really enjoyed our time at Lander in Greenwood. The community was starting to rally around us. They've always had a lot of success on the women's side. Coach Kevin Pedersen does a phenomenal job, and he was a great coach. And being able to bounce ideas off him during the year was fantastic. But I thought the community started really getting into it and rallying around us, and support started growing. Obviously, it's weird how it works, but the more you win, the more people support you, it turns out. Whenever we set the record for most Peach Belt wins in the history of Lander, I mean, that excitement stuff, that got people really excited. Like I said, it as much as I felt like we accomplished in the year, it almost made the decision a little bit easier because I felt like I was hired to do a job. Brian Reese brought me in to do a job, and we both thought it would take a lot longer than it did, but the job got done, and I think after we finished like we did that year, I felt almost more comfortable taking UNC Pembroke outside of just having family and things like that and wanting to come back, but I felt like our job was done at Lander.
And what would you say was the biggest thing that you learned as a head coach in your first season as a head coach as you transitioned back to UNCP?
There's a lot. It's hard to pinpoint one thing. I mean, once you sit in that chair, I know people say about that all the time. Once you sit in that chair, things change. But I was lucky when I was here at UNCP to be the associate head coach. I learned to do a lot of those things. So there wasn't a whole lot that came across my desk that I hadn't had hands in here, either working with Dick Christie or Pop or someone like that. I was always involved in a lot of stuff at UNCP. So that helped me learn a lot. So when I got to Lander, really the biggest adjustment was your voice is the main voice being heard in practice. If your energy level is down when you walk into practice, it affects everything. As an assistant, you can kind of skate by sometimes. I don't feel as good, or maybe I'm not as jacked to be at practice that day. Head coach is not the same because the entire team feeds off of what you do. So you've got to be able to bring it consistently to practice every single day when it comes to energy and enthusiasm. And then obviously in the game, your decisions mean a lot. As an assistant, you feel pretty confident because I can suggest something to you if you're the head coach. You don't have to use it. But either way, I've done my job because I made the suggestion. As the head coach, you have to take in this information from your staff. You have to take your own ideas and be able to make it final in the decision where, it's make or break. I'm going to pull the ripcord, and if the parachute deploys, we're going to be okay. And if not, we're going to plummet straight to the earth. And that, as a head coach, that level of responsibility, I think, is something you cannot prepare for regardless of what you do as an associate or as an assistant.
I want to go back to something that you said earlier, and you also said it in your tweet announcing that you were returning to UNCP. That this place feels like home to you, and I can say that as well as somebody who just moved down here from up north. And the town of Pembroke has been a phenomenal place, wonderful people. It's a town that continues to grow a bit and really rallies around the university. But what is it about Pembroke and UNCP that makes it home?
Well, I mean, both my children were born here. My wife and I's children were born here, which is that there's always going to be a special side to things on that nature. I think the people make it home. The people here are some of the most diehard, loyal, interesting people that you can meet in the country. I've told people that have asked me about it. That I think I think the community, I think Robinson County, I think Pembroke, and the surrounding areas take a ton of pride in UNCP. And it's not something that they do. Oh, it's just okay. Sometimes they go to games. It's life. UNCP is life for this community, and that to me is the most unique thing. And why we call it home and family is because that's truly what it feels like. Everybody's got stock in this university, and they care what happens here. And so the thing that we always took pride in on staff, even as an associate coach here, moving forward, is you want to make those people proud. You want to make them. I know they're already proud about what the university holds and its beliefs and its backgrounds, but you want to make them proud of the product you put on the floor and what you represent when you put that brave head on your chest. And I think that, after working at several universities, I think that is something that is not common at all. And I think anybody that's lucky enough to be able to coach at a university with the kind of pride that UNCP has, I think you need to take the chance at it.
And not just the people, but the resources here too, the facilities. You have Scotland Health, the official healthcare provider of UNCP Athletics, that does a phenomenal job keeping our athletes on the court and the field and keeping them healthy. Just a whole lot of great things going in favor of UNCP. And now that you're here, you've started to piece together your coaching staff. And of course, the biggest name that I think a lot of fans were curious about, Tony Jones. He's staying on staff as the associate head coach. What went into that decision to keep Tony on staff?
That was probably the easiest decision that I've made in a long time. Tony is unbelievable. Tony did a great job here this past year under very difficult circumstances. He's as positive, he is as relaxed, he's as conscientious as any human I've ever met. And, as much as we talk about players and their improvement, and, Tyrell Kirk shoots a higher percentage from three now because he's worked at it. Or, David Struther's gotten stronger because he's worked at it. You see Tony Jones has put the work in. And I make the joke all the time, and he'll probably kill me for telling the story, but, we hired him on as a student assistant. He came from Gardner-Webb. He actually helped the women's team out at Gardner-Webb. Came here as a student assistant, and we truly almost let him go after 3 weeks because the first workouts he came to practice, and he had headphones in, and he had shades on. And he had big baggy shorts and sandals. He had flip-flop sandals with socks on. And I'm like, this dude thinks he's way too cool to be a part of this program. And he'd always have a big smile on his face. And I'm like, does he actually ever do anything? It was hilarious. And I still remember the first summer when Coach Jones decided he really wanted to be a college coach. I think it was after his second year. And that guy showed up and he wasn't making anything. There was no financial benefits for him whatsoever, but he was showing up in the office at 8:30, 9 o'clock every single morning during the summer, just wanting to do something, just wanting to learn. And since then, his trajectory has shot upward. He is an absolute rising star in this profession. I think every coach in the Peach Belt and in the region knows that now. It wasn't as hard a decision for me to retain him. I was hoping that he would give us the honor of staying on our staff, which he has, since we've been back and since we've been able to work together, it's just like old times. So it's been really nice for that.
He's a guy who's called you his mentor, and it sounds like he's come a long way from the sandals and wearing sunglasses inside
yes.
back early on his time here at UNCP. Have you had a chance to kind of think about the rest of your staff?
Yeah, we've obviously my brother-in-law Connor Keltner's on staff here, so I think legally, I don't think I can make any adjustments there. I think that'd make Christmas pretty weird. No, but Connor's fantastic. Connor's literally I make fun of him. I call him Will Hunting. He's literally like a genius. And his X's and O's and his IQ. He's as smart as any basketball brain probably in the world. So we'd love to have him here. Desmond Williams, those guys, Mike Smith. Those guys, once again, we talk about family. Those guys are family. We want the staff to be family, and those guys have been through the battles. They've seen the heartaches. They've seen the triumphs. We might add one more staff member in the future. Not really sure about that right now, but as of right now, the guys that are on staff this year, they're part of the Brave family, so we want them to be part of it moving forward.
So one of your first, I guess in the off-season, first roles as a coach is recruiting. And with the coronavirus situation, there has been some NCAA rule changes about recruiting, and now we see some virtual recruiting. What does that look like? What challenges does that present to you as a coach?
Well, I don't want to give out too much of our current recruiting, not that there's much of it, but it's challenging because we have a beautiful campus here, and it's an amazing situation. And as much as we can show them, the recruits, how beautiful it is, and they can look at it, to experience it in person and experience the people and experience all these people coming up to them asking if they're a basketball player and they want them to come here and be a part of Brave Nation. We're not able to do that. So it's not really the constant communication, because a lot of coaches do that. It's almost get to a point where you don't want to annoy the recruit too much, which is it's a fine line to trend. But that's part of the reason we have our jobs. I mean, we're trying to find creative ways to keep them engaged, to keep them interested in Brave Nation. So hopefully, eventually, if the recruiting ban, if you will, gets lifted halfway through April, then we can line people up and get them to campus. But I think it's just truly just trying to stay engaged with them as much as possible, and balancing that line between overdoing it and doing too little.
Very interesting. And when you take a step back and you look at this program as a whole, I mean, in my eyes, here in the history of what UNCP was in the early 2000s into what it is now, is not only a regional but really a national powerhouse. You come into a situation where you know what the expectations are, and that's to win. So what are your goals for the 2021 season?
I think it's really impressive that I love the stat that UNCP men's basketball the last 6 years has either started or ended every single season in the top 25 in the nation. So that's pretty amazing if you think about the longevity and the consistency there. Our goals are high. I mean, they usually are high, and that's what when you put on the Brave head, what you're going to have to represent it for. So, trying to find that balancing act of this is what we want to accomplish. We want to continue to make history. We want to do things that have never been done before, but understand that the more you look at those things, the least likely you're going to worry about today. So, trying to take it a day at a time right now, especially with coronavirus, trying to figure out, okay, how can we improve today? As a coach, as a head coach, how can I be better tomorrow than I am today? As a player, what can they do? Maybe they can't get to the gym. Maybe they can watch film. Maybe they can go dribble the basketball in their yard. How can I be a better boss to our staff? How can I be a better coach in the game or in practice? That's how right now we're able to get better and learn. And then hopefully, if we can continue to take it day by day and improve in any way possible, those expectations will be met with a collaborative effort of continuing to get better.
Take a look to your personal life, and you have 2 kids, and I believe right before you left UNCP, you had a daughter, correct?
I'd never had a daughter, but my wife had the daughter, yeah.
Your wife, that's a very good point. Your wife had the daughter. So you both have 2 children now.
Yes.
What has that been like, 2 young children, and trying to balance that with coaching as well?
It's difficult. I mean, Benton's 1 and Knox is 3. And Benton really doesn't know the difference between, Lander and UNCP, but Knox certainly does. He would, during the year, because of the relationships with Joey Tamburo, our athletic trainer, and Tony and Connor, during the year, he'd always make sure to inform his dad if NCP lost or won. And usually they won. So even if we lost, he'd come in at NCP won. That's good, Knox. I don't need to hear about it. But, and he, coming back, I mean, literally, I remember when we came back here, as soon as he saw Joey, I mean, he sprinted across the floor and was screaming Joey and gave him a big old hug. I mean, so having them as a coach is difficult, because obviously you want to spend as much time with them as possible, but also as a coach you have to understand, if I don't do my job, if I don't go out recruiting, if I don't stay at the gym and break down film, I can't provide for them. So balancing between seeing them, interacting with them, being a part of their lives, and understanding that I've got a job to do, and if I do my job, hopefully it keeps a roof over their head. That's a tough balancing act, but I think the more you practice it doesn't get any easier on their end, but I think the more you can practice it, I think you can make it, I don't know, it's try to make it as even as possible.
I want to end with a little bit of a philosophical question that was proposed to me by Todd Anderson, actually. So,
Legend.
If you had to create a 5-minute loop of events that resets every 5 minutes you live that loop forever, for the rest of your life, what would you pick and why? And I'll give you some time to kind of chew on that, because that's a difficult question.
So like mini Groundhog Day.
Yes, a very just 5 minutes that's on a loop.
And it's just, and you can't break it up. You can't like add parts, because I'd like to add.
Okay, for the sake of this, we'll say yes. You can add some. You can mix and match in there.
That's fairly easy, because then you want to add in the birth of both children.
Okay.
Your wedding.
Okay.
And then you want to add in every single time you got to cut down a net.
Okay.
And that I'd be good with that.
That in loop for every 5 minutes for the rest of your life.
Absolutely. Yeah, because then you literally have lived your life. You've gotten married, you've had children, and you've won championships. Yeah, you can die a happy man after all that.
Great answer. All right, there you have it. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. And after 5 years as an assistant here, you go down to Lander. We are so happy to have you back as the head men's basketball coach here at UNCP.
Glad to be back.
And again, a big thank you to Drew Richards, the new head men's basketball coach here at UNCP, for sitting down and chatting with me. Now we transition to our second part of today's episode. Joey Tamburo, the head athletic trainer here at UNC Pembroke. In addition to talking a little bit about his career, Joey gives phenomenal insight into the COVID-19 pandemic and how it's directly impacting how he goes about his daily work. All right, Joey, thank you so much for joining me here on BraveHawk Talk, the second all-time guest after UNCP men's basketball coach Drew Richards. So we appreciate you hopping on with us.
Absolutely, I'm honored. I appreciate it, for sure.
So first of all, let's take a little bit of a look at your time here at UNCP. You've been on staff here for 7 years now. You were a student here for 3 years, worked in the athletic training department as a student as well. What has your overall experience been like at UNCP?
I've loved UNCP. That's why I came back. I actually went to a different school my freshman year in college. Transferred in here my sophomore year because I knew I wanted to be an athletic trainer. I wanted a good program. I was still playing sports back then. So transferred to UNCP, 3 years here. Graduated with my undergrad. Went and got my master's degree in Pennsylvania. Spent a year up there after that just working, and just realized that I got a call from Susan Edkins, who still works here, who said, we're going to have an opportunity, and I jumped at it as quick as I could. And 7 years here now, and I'm finishing up my 7th year, and I'm actually the head athletic trainer now in the Jones building with all the sports that work out of the Jones athletic training facility.
And, athletic training is one of those things. I have a couple friends who have had some interest in it, and it's something that people that are in it are in it and love it and are very passionate about it. So what is it about athletic training that drew you to the field initially, and that keeps you involved?
I think if you got any questions about my passion about it, if you're watching the UNCP basketball game, just look at the end of the bench for the crazy guy in a suit jumping up and down. But I just always, I don't know, a lot of people have different answers for how they got into it. I actually was motivated. I had my track coach was actually my athletic trainer in high school, and the way he taught the subject was really, really cool. He related it to a lot of things that made sense to me. So that's kind of where it started at, and then from there, my passion for it really is just being able to, be with these student athletes every day, being able to see, you're kind of there in some of these kids' darkest moments. Bad things happen as they're happening right now, and a lot, all over the country. So it's kind of like, us being there, you get to be there for the darkest moments, and you get to kind of help them triumph over a lot of that stuff, which is just, it's just really cool. And when you're a people person like I claim to be, anyways, it's just really cool to get to see these kids and these student athletes and what they go through, and get to be there for them in kind of a different role than what a coach would be or an administrator would be. We fill in a lot of the gaps, and so it's just I couldn't see myself doing anything else.
And like you mentioned, some bad things going on right now, not just here, but worldwide.
Yeah, for sure.
This coronavirus pandemic. And you, in your role as the head athletic trainer here at UNCP, you are one of the foremost medical leaders here in the athletic department. But before we jump into that in depth and how you view everything with that, I want to talk about an experience that both of us shared, and this certainly impacted you more than me, as you're somebody who's worked with the men's basketball program for years. Day in, day out, you're with the coaches, with the student athletes, and working with them very, very closely. We're 4 hours onto the bus ride to go to Lincoln Memorial for the NCAA tournament game.
Yeah.
And we find out that the NCAA tournament was canceled.
Yeah.
What was that moment like for you, and what was, as a medical expert, what was your reaction to the decision?
As a medical expert, my reaction wasn't, honestly, I was expecting it. I didn't think we were going to get on the bus. I mean, our start time got pushed back that morning anyways. We were waiting on the leadership from the university to come down and tell us it was even going to be okay to go. So as a medical professional, no, I was on the phone with some of my friends and colleagues, and we all were along the same lines of this is going to get canceled for sure. But as an athletic trainer, as somebody who's worked around especially that team for so long, I mean, it was gut wrenching. I mean, we had to. And the guys were actually really, really aware of what was happening. We talked to them before we even got on the bus. A lot of them were concerned with what was going on. And so, I kind of gave them, a lot of the stuff gets polarized so big in the media the night before with the Rudy Gobert thing. So a lot of the guys were really, really nervous. So I talked to them and just kind of gave them all the facts. Here it is. Make your decision if you're comfortable going. Everybody got on the bus, let's go make some noise, let's go dancing. And I told them all, we had hand sanitizer on the bus. I mean, you were there, hand sanitizer, I had masks, I had gloves, I had everything for them, all of our universal precautions. And then to see it on Twitter and find out that, hey, it's canceled and have to go back there. And Tony, or Coach Jones actually was talking to Dick, so I went back to the back of the bus and actually told the guys, and to see some of their faces was just, it's still, it's something I won't forget. You got Carson Mounts and Akia Pruitt and Michael Kinsey, who were all just kind of just you see, I won't say they were crying, but you could kind of see the glass over their eyes where it's just like, hold on, you mean it's postponed, right? So no, it's not postponed, it's canceled. And they were like, oh, okay, and just kind of see those kids sit for a minute and just, oh man, it's really over for them. They won't play another game in a Braves jersey. So it was tough. It's definitely something. I mean, like you said, being on the bus, I don't think I'll ever forget that experience, that bus ride. I mean, it was unlike anything I've ever been a part of. So it was crazy.
And I mean, we have to hope that it's a unique experience, that something like that will never happen again. But that was certainly something that I'll never forget. And you mentioned them saying postponed. I remember hearing people say, postponed, right? Postponed, right? No, it's.
And I think that was kind of, they got misconstrued before we got on the bus. They're thinking, hey, I don't feel comfortable going. They were thinking, they'll get pushed back a couple of weeks, and I kind of had to let them know, this thing's going to get worse before it gets better. This isn't going to be something where you can push it back a couple of days. I mean, it's when they cancel the March Madness, you got to assume the trickle down is going to come to us too. You know what I mean? So it was, I really hope I never have to be a part of anything like that again, for sure.
Yes, that is for sure. So that was just one of many aspects that has changed recently with the coronavirus as a pandemic worldwide and impacting us here in the U.S. And one of the things, at least at Uncp and pretty much most colleges around the country, student athletes are encouraged to stay home, and they're not supposed to be on campus. That makes your job, I'm sure, very different, in some ways more difficult. How has that changed things?
Oh, it's changed, dramatically. For us at UNCP, we're a little bit unique because we all also teach. And so we've got that aspect of where our classes have moved to online. So we're trying to worry about that. We're getting a lot of our stuff digitized and making sure that our classes are kind of look the same almost online for these kids who can't be on campus. But as far as the athletic training aspect of it goes, I'm in constant communication with a couple of athletes who I had who were injured, and as well as my staff who have a lot of athletes who are injured. And so we're just kind of finding creative ways, whether it be almost every athlete we had who went home with an injury, who was receiving some sort of treatment, we sent home a home exercise plan. So just something, basically their exercise is some way to modify it to stay home, but to modify, whether you're lifting soup cans or whether you're using the couch to help you stretch or whatever the case may be. And then it just depending on who the athlete is, a lot of us are FaceTiming kids every day, FaceTiming athletes, just show me what you're doing. I can help improve technique, or I can say, okay, maybe we can make it more difficult doing this. Some of them have used WebEx. Some of them, if they've got a group workout where they kind of do the group FaceTime thing and try to almost lead a workout. Some of them are just calling and saying, some athletes are really, really self-sufficient where you can just text, hey, you got any questions? Did you get everything done today? But it's definitely been looking for a lot of creative solutions to problems that we're used to having, exercise plans, but not when somebody says, here, take this and go home and let's hope that you can do it right. It's definitely been a unique time for sure.
Yeah, and that adjustment kind of leads me to my next question. You mainly focus on getting student athletes back to their playing shape, playing abilities. But now with student athletes at home and maybe not having the same resources they normally would, what are some things that they can do to stay in shape?
Well, depending on where they are, and if they have hopefully if they have a family member who they're self-quarantined with, or somebody that they're social distancing with, if they have somebody like that, at least they might have a workout partner. They might have somebody who they're able to. But it's really just been you finding unique scenarios, like you just said, putting something together like that, or maybe some athletes have a bigger yard. They live in the country, getting out and running, or getting out and figuring out something that you can do. Whether heck, even if it's just going out and doing yard work, do something to get the heart rate elevated. And it's kind of unique for every person. And the athletic performance staff has actually done a really good job of setting up. What Coach Gooding did was they have an app online that they have for the athletes, and what they did is they set up an exercise plan for if they have a weight room, if they have weights at home, or if they have some kind of weight room that they could use, or just all body weight exercises. So if they're at home and they can't leave and they've just got a whole bunch of body weight exercises, and he's made that available to them they have an app on their phone. They can go through and do all that kind of stuff. So we're all kind of adapting as we go, for sure.
And this is a virus that does not discriminate. It could impact, the severity might differ based on age groups or medical, past medical issues, but it can impact anyone, and that goes for student athletes and the general public. So for anyone, whether they're a student athlete or just a regular person, what are some ways to stay healthy and to avoid catching the coronavirus?
For right now, please stay home. Please stay home. That's the biggest thing anybody can do. The social distancing thing is huge right now. Because if you look at the CDC stuff and all the World Health Organization, even FEMA's got some stuff out. The biggest thing is just stopping the spread. That's what the big message is: stop the spread. And you can't do that if you're around people all day. That's how we have our first confirmed case in Robinson County, because they weren't social distancing, and so they're around other people who were infected. So that's the first thing, is just if you can stay home, stay home. If you don't need to be around people, you text me and ask me to come on here, I text you back and say, have you been traveling? Have you been out of town? Like where have you been at?
It's a smart question. You have to be safe.
And that's the other thing is when you do go out, they keep saying the hand sanitizer or whatever, but just wash your hands. Wash your hands before you go to the grocery store. Wash your hands after you go to the grocery store. While you're in the grocery store, don't touch your face a whole bunch, because now you're holding on to a cart that somebody else has just used. You don't know who sneezed on their hands and put it on the cart, and they're not 100% sure how contagious it is getting off of objects. But as you see, I'm not going to take any risks. If you have masks, wear masks. Don't stand within 6 feet of somebody for more than 10 minutes if you haven't been around. And from there, it's just general hygiene. Just washing your hands more than you're supposed to, keeping your things clean, staying away from people who have been infected, or who have been around somebody who's been infected. Everybody always begs for days off, and being able to extended spring breaks, and here you go. We're literally telling you, please stay home. Please take the longest spring break you can get. And I said, I think if everybody would just listen to that message over them, I think this started last week. It was 15 days to stop the spread. But unfortunately, you still see videos of people at spring breaks in Florida, and I saw a couple of videos where California has been in a state of emergency for weeks now, and there's still videos of people on the beach drinking games and out playing basketball. And even in New York, it's the same thing. The governor of New York was on yesterday, and he said, we can't have people on the street playing basketball. He's like, I play basketball. You can't social distance and play basketball. He said, if you stay 6 feet away from somebody, you're going to be a pretty crummy basketball player. Yeah. And so that's really just the biggest thing. You see all the things: washing your hands, coughing into your elbow, that kind of stuff. Things that you've been taught your whole life. But the biggest thing right now is just stay away from. You're the only person I've seen that I've been around that I don't live with for the last 10 days. I just try to get away from everybody.
And you've been very adamant about this, how important it is, both in person with the basketball team or on social media. There are people still out there who, like you said, have not been listening to these calls from public officials and from health officials. What would your message be to those people? Because I don't know if we have any listening on this podcast, but what would your message be to those people who have not been heeding these calls?
From the stuff I've seen, especially social media, it's just take it seriously, and a lot of it is I had questions before this really got to this level. A lot of athletes were like, oh yeah, well, it's just the flu. Oh, if somebody like me gets it, it's not going to matter. And you might be right, but somebody like you or I get it, we might be fine. We might have flu-like symptoms and stay home for 2 weeks. And we have people. I saw Idris Elba online. He still doesn't have any symptoms. He has it, but he doesn't have any symptoms. But that doesn't mean that you can't give it to someone else. If you have a loved one in your life who is elderly, who has had some kind of COPD, some kind of breathing issues, any kind of immune system issues, those are the people that we're worried about. That's why hospitals are getting flooded right now. Everybody just looks. People, a lot of times, people don't see past their nose, and they don't realize that, it doesn't affect me, so it doesn't matter. But if you get it and you affect someone else, and now that's why. Ask somebody that works at a hospital how the hours they're working and the supplies they're going through. I mean, manufacturers are having a hard time even keeping up with medical supplies because the hospitals are just flooded right now. If you don't think it's serious, the worldwide number as of today was 350,000 infected. I didn't get a chance to look at the number of deaths yet, but I know it's just steadily rising. So just my overall message be take it seriously. Even if you don't think it can hurt you, you think you're invincible, whatever, that the person next to you is not. It's a time for everybody to just kind of come together and look out, love thy neighbor,
And you said it earlier, stop the spread. At the very least, if we can slow the spread, it'll make things just
That's
a little bit better.
Really, if you slow it down, bring it back down a little bit, everything will go back to some kind of normal, some kind.
Hopefully sooner rather than later if we follow these precautions that have been outlined to us.
I would like to get back to work sometime.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
As would I. I miss calling games.
Yeah, there it is.
Joey, thank you so much for joining us today in BraveHawk Talk, and thank you for sharing some of your insight, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, John.